Good evening, everyone. Welcome to East Midlands Special Operations Unit engagement event for tonight, Understanding the Children's World. We've got a packed agenda for you. Just to start with some introductions, my name is Bill Knopp. I'm the Regional Prevent Coordinator in the East Midlands, and thank you for my team for pulling this all together. Just to go through the agenda and then some house rules. I will hand over shortly to Deputy Chief Constable Paul Gibson, who heads up our unit in the East Midlands. I know there's folk dialing in from around the world, so we are in the UK, the East Midlands part of the UK. So Paul will open the event, and I'll then hand over to Sergeant Louise Gibson from our cyber engagement team. There'll be a question and answer session, and then we'll hand over to Craig Lewis from Warning Zone, which is a local charity that works in Leicestershire, and then be followed by Q&A session before just back to me for some closing remarks and any further questions from the audience. So just some housekeeping rules. We've had a really fantastic response to tonight's event. We've had over 800 people register, and as I said, from all around the UK and beyond. So particular welcome to you. Just to inform you of how we're going to do questions, because there are so many folk attending, sadly it's going to be impossible for people to have a chance to speak directly with us. What I would encourage you is to put your questions to us. We will try and answer them directly, and then at the end of each talk we will kind of collate all the questions and put them to our expert speakers. Please be aware that because of some of the complications of working via cloud, there is actually a 20-second delay between you receiving this. So although I'm talking live, this isn't a recording, there's going to be a 20-second delay before you get it. So it might just make it a little bit stilted in terms of responding to you. So I will hand over to Mr. Gibson if you're okay to take us from here.
Okay, thank you, Bill, and good evening to everybody who's joining us this evening. My name's Paul Gibson. As Bill says, I'm the Deputy Chief Constable here and look after the East Midlands Specialist Operations Unit, which is a collaboration of 5 forces in the East Midlands, and that involves and entails leadership for counter-terrorism as well. It's a real pleasure to be here. It's great to join you, and as Bill says, it's fantastic to see that we've got so many people from all parts of the world that have joined us this evening. Okay, so a warm welcome, and this event is a joint effort between EMSU and Warning Zone to discuss the risk posed from online radicalising material. Many of you will be aware that PREVENT is the part of the government's counter-terrorism strategy that's called Contest. It's fair to say that it's the most contentious and misconstrued part of the strategy. But at its simplest form, PREVENT aims to safeguard and divert young people and vulnerable people from being drawn into terrorism or supporting terrorism. In the last year of published figures, which is 2019 and 2020, there were just over 6,200 PREVENT referrals received in the UK. For context, in the same period, over 600,000 safeguarding concerns were raised for young people overall. So PREVENT is quite a modest contributor to the overall figures for safeguarding. Within the East Midlands, during the same period, we received 600 referrals covering a broad spectrum of ideologies. The most frequently recorded relate to Al-Qaeda or ISIS ideologies, and also extreme right wing, the latter being the fastest growing. The similarity between the ideologies is that they seek to exploit and amplify existing grievances. Their messaging offer seemingly simple solutions aiming to create a sense of excitement, belonging and purpose in their recipients. The most sophisticated of groups, like any large organisation, segment their audiences and create relevant content for specific demographics. ISIS were the first terrorist group to exploit the potential of social media, maintaining tens of thousands of different accounts at their peak. The extreme right wing have learnt these lessons too, now produce compelling and engaging content particularly aimed at a younger audience. All organisations need to recruit new members, of course, to survive and expand. Extremist groups are no different. They're actively seeking to recruit vulnerable people through their online messaging. A routine prevent case is a referral concerning a young person who is accessing extremist material. This may contain virulently hostile sentiments towards different cultures, faiths or lifestyles, and often disturbingly violent imagery. Approximately 50% of current prevent cases, to put it in context, involve online material being accessed. This includes via all major social media platforms, by gaming chat, or on the elusive dark web. The last year has only seen the proportion of the time we spend online increase, and extremists have used the pandemic not just to target people who are isolating, but adapt conspiracy theories about the virus into their messaging. Parents routinely report that they feel disempowered when it comes to understanding their children's online lives. Tonight's event is meant to give you some of the tools you need to increase your confidence in ensuring your children are safe online. I would encourage you to use the chat function to ask any questions from our experts, and please do that. And finally, from me, I hope you find the evening certainly very informative and very helpful. And I'll just finish off by saying thank you again for joining us, and have a very enjoyable evening. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Gibson. I will hand over now to Sergeant Louise Gibson from the Cybercrime engagement team, who is going to give you some of the tools to help you protect your children online.
Hello, thank you for that introduction. Hello everyone, thank you for attending this evening. I'm delighted to be here. As Bill said, my name is Lou Gibson, no relation to Paul. It is a bit confusing with the same surname, but I'm currently a detective sergeant for the cyber engagement team here at MSU. A bit of a brief sort of synopsis of what my team does. So my team's primary purpose is to help individuals and organisations protect themselves from cybercrime. And I also work on the cyber choices strand, which is I also work with technically gifted young adults to ensure they're using their skills in a legal way. So both of those are to do with online activity. And I've been asked here today just to give you a sort of a 20-minute introduction to how to keep your network safe online as parents and professionals. So if you're professionals on this this presentation, then you could use this advice to give to parents or people working or dealing with young individuals. And if you're parents, hopefully it will give you some knowledge around your home network and securing that digital world. And then we'll be talking about having those important conversations with a child around their online space, and that'll feed in nicely to what Craig is going to be talking on after my chat. So we're going to move on to the steps to keep safe online. So I've been asked, like I said, to kind of give you an oversight of keeping a child safe online. And I think the best way to do that is to create sort of easy steps to follow in order to kind of create this safer environment. And one of the first steps, as obvious as it sounds, is to have some real clear conversations around a digital world and a child's digital world. I think often as adults, we put our own interpretation on the digital world on a child, and we don't really understand what they're doing and why they're doing it. So in order to create a safe environment, it really is important to start having those kind of difficult sometimes conversations. But what I have noticed, and I'll always refer back to this throughout my presentation, is I talk to young individuals who are gifted online, and they've talked about this imbalance where they feel they don't talk to their parents about online and technical aspects around computing because their parents or professionals, indeed teachers, they just simply don't understand the technical aspects of computing. So you get this power imbalance. I'm sure I'm not alone if I say, when parents get a Wi-Fi router, they give it to their child to set it up in their home. And, you know, we need to get that power imbalance back. You know, I also do presentations at school, and I've spoken to some teachers where, you know, if the network's not working at school, often, you know, a teacher will give the laptop to a gifted technical child within their class to sort the network out. And what I intend to do in this presentation is trying to give you a few hints and tips around regaining that control, but also enabling you to have the knowledge and confidence to have those conversations with children online. So what I want you to be having a conversation is about where they're going online, what are they visiting, what apps are they using, where they're visiting, and who are they visiting those places with, and how long they're spending on there. And what's important to say is it's not a telling off or checking in on them. It's about a really clear, open dialogue, so you can then start to understand where they're going, so then you can put some security measures in place. So we'll talk about privacy throughout the whole kind of presentation. But one of the things is to realise that privacy doesn't necessarily mean that someone's doing something wrong. You know, again, I hear this time and time again when I talk to young individuals and children, is they want an element of privacy online, and then that's sometimes misinterpreted as they're doing something naughty or illegal, where it's just a part of growing up. And I will always liken it to when I was a child many years ago, when the internet was no longer a beast, it wasn't even in existence. And when I was a child and growing up, did I have a diary? The answer is yes. Did it have things in the diary that I wanted to keep secret? Of course it did. It was moaning about my parents, talking about boys I liked, you know, telling, you know, what I had for dinner. It was really mundane stuff, but to me it was really important that no one else read my diary. So even though there was nothing in there that was particularly, you know, juicy or naughty or illegal, did I want to put a lock on my diary? Yes, absolutely. Did I share that key with anyone? No. That diary now has gone online. That messaging has now gone online because of how the modern technology has developed. So the same element of privacy is still desired online. So don't misinterpret the need for privacy meaning they're doing something wrong, because we all seek privacy. Adults in this presentation, we seek privacy online because we are now more conscious around our data trail, and we'll be talking about that. So please don't think you know, privacy means naughty, but what I want to do is have an open, trusted conversation with the child so they feel they can talk to you about their online activity without mitigating that element of privacy. So again, other things that you can talk about is, you know, what are the newest websites that people go on or apps that are using, what are their friends doing online, and if you know, if you can do, ask them to show you. So show you what the apps they're using, show you where they're going, and try and create that kind of really comfortable dialogue with your child. Then we're going to move up the ladder on this steps is so device parental controls. Again, what I'm asking you to do is every device, generally speaking, has a security control on that. So what I mean by that is your mobile phone has biometrics. Biometrics is your fingerprint or your eye retina scan. Okay, so that's a security control. So has all of your devices in your house got security controls on them? Do they all have passwords? Do they all have laptops? Laptops. Do they all have PIN codes? So again, who knows that information? Again, when I speak to the young kids and adults that I deal with on our sort of cyber choices side, a lot of the time they're the ones that set up the parental controls. And I kind of want to, you know, home in on that. We're asking children to set up parental controls for themselves. And what I want to do by the end of my sort of 20-minute spiel, half an hour spiel, is give you the powers and the knowledge to do that. So again, one of the ticky boxes to think about is, have you shared them? How often do you share them? And if you have passwords for laptops, we're going to talk about passwords in a bit, but you know, do you share your passwords? Make sure you have different passwords. And if you can't remember all your passwords, password manager. Okay, and again, I'll mention that a bit later on. Another thing up the ladder that I've sort of mentioned is application parental security controls. Really important, guys. And it's it kind of cements why start some conversations with a child is right at the start, because how on earth do you know what parental controls on what applications to put on if you don't even know what apps they're using? So again, what I'm asking you to do is do your homework. So have a good conversation, really open dialogue around what's on a child's phone, what's on a child's laptop, and understand what applications they're using, and go and do your homework. There are loads of resources out there around you know, simple steps for putting on parental security controls on most applications, most social media, most games as well. And also think about you know, the age rating on games as well. That's an important thing to do as well. And again, you can go on different websites, they'll give you a synopsis of the age and the age appropriate content. So again, another thing, it's another layer that we can put on to protect our children within their digital world is an application security control. So we're talking about social media privacy settings, we're talking about gaming and age appropriate games, and we're talking about security controls on applications. So that is a big one. My bugbear, next one, is Wi-Fi parental controls, and we're going to be talking about this in a bit more detail in a bit. But the big four internet service providers give customers free parental controls that can be activated at any time. Okay, and the amount of parents I speak to don't use them, and the analogy to use is your Wi-Fi router is your gateway, is your front door to your house, and you know, you would never leave your house unlocked with the door open, yet with our Wi-Fi router we leave it unlocked with the door open to the internet. And actually I'm going to give you some really simple tips around controlling that and gaining that control of the Wi-Fi. Again, one of the things I get told time and time again about parents is I've lost control of my Wi-Fi in my house. You know, even at school when we're talking about, you know, filtering at school, you know, I speak to IT managers and they go, you know, they're bypassing the filters. These young individuals are getting more technically savvy and they are bypassing these controls and they're losing the control over the Wi-Fi. And this Wi-Fi is a big leverage stick. You know, years ago, like I say, when I was naughty, even though I was a police officer, I was naughty as a child, you know, and I used to get, you know, my pocket money taken off me, or I got grounded, you know, robotide, not being allowed out in this current climate. But now the leverage at home is I'll turn the Wi-Fi off. That's how important the Wi-Fi is to children. And what we need to do is make sure we control that Wi-Fi, not the child. So again, something I'll home in on in a bit. The last one is kind of my basic cybersecurity advice. Like I said before, I work on both sides of the house, so I do cybersecurity advice to organisations, businesses, charities, individuals, and I also work with young individuals. And one thing I will always say is antivirus is an absolute must. It's a must because we all click on things we shouldn't do. Children are also clicking on things they shouldn't do. The amount of you know, malware, malicious software, viruses that you can get onto your home network, really important, basic security advice. And most you know, there's loads of paid for services out there. There is even some free ones. So if you've got a Windows operating system on your laptop, it'll have a built-in free one that's called Windows Defender. So there's loads out there, just make sure you're using it. And again, do your research with some of the companies that are offering antivirus, because they often come with security bundles which include password managers and a VPN, and a VPN actually might be quite useful to you, and I'll explain why a bit later on. So those are the kind of steps to keeping yourself safe online. Go and do your homework, guys, and make sure that you use it as a bit of a checking point to secure your child's digital world. So again, moving on to the digital footprint, I think it's also important to recognise that data and data collection is a real topic of conversation, and it will be, because data now is arguably more valuable than anything, you know. And we've got a saying as well in cybersecurity: if you don't pay for the service, you know, you are the service, you are the paid for service. So, you know, your data is more valuable to the Facebooks, the WhatsApps of the world than paying for a Facebook account. That's why it's still free. So, and the reason is that data collection. So, you know, each time you go online, you're leaving a trail of information behind about you. So it's important to be aware of this and make sure that anything posted online can't be traced to you. And I'm talking about tagged photos, likes on Facebook, Instagram, browsing history, all of the basics. So the biggest tip is go Google yourself, okay, to find out how much information is available around you. Another wee joke, just to lighten the mood with regards to cybersecurity, is a bit of a cybersecurity joke, is you know, where's the best place to hide a body? Page 2 of Google, because no one goes on it, which is so true, right? So when I say Google yourself, don't be lazy, don't just look at the first page, go a bit deeper, and find out, you know, the back end of Google, how much is there around you, so, and people you care about. So again, I would positively encourage parents to consider Googling things about their family to make sure that what is publicly available online. And again, going back to that really important conversation with a child, do you know what social media accounts they have? Do you know all of their online handles? Again, a bit of a you know, kind of, I think, a misconception, you know, a child having multiple social media handles on the same social media platform, you know, that's relatively commonplace. I've seen it quite a lot. It doesn't indicate anything, you know, they just like to have lots of social media handles, but do you know all of them, so you know which ones to check, which ones to look at, and what is their digital footprint? So again, if you're going to take anything from our sort of wee little chat today, go Google yourself, Google your family, Google your address, see how much information is coming back to you, because trust me, I think you will be surprised at how much you can find out about yourself. Next one is my big one. Is around securing your home Wi-Fi. So again, like I said, your Wi-Fi is your Wi-Fi router is a device that communicates between the internet and the devices at your home, and it connects to the internet. And as the name implies, it's quite simple. It routes the traffic between devices and the internet. So that's what your router is. And most people have a wireless version called your Wi-Fi router. So that's your basic cybersecurity. It's probably what you're all connected to listen to this presentation. So you all should know a wee bit about it. But when I speak to lots of individuals around cybersecurity, we often hear about the home setup. And it's really alarming that I get told, I would say on a weekly basis, by individuals, so parents, professionals, even business, you know, company owners, they're telling me that they simply plug in their router and their internet service provider says you're good to go, and they just surf the internet, and there's absolutely zero considerations to cybersecurity. And hopefully I will talk to you about why that's important. So most, like I say, most security service providers, internet service providers like BT, PlusNet, Sky, whatever you have, will provide customers with documentation, videos, FAQs to help them secure the router. So your first port of call is have a look at your service provider's website and take advantage of some of their advice pages, because they are really good. But I've kind of broke a few down to kind of help you. So first step, I hope, I'd love to do a poll to see how many people on this call have actually done this. So first step is to change the default passwords. I'll give you some password advice in a bit. Do you know how to do this? Most people, I hope, I'm not, I can't see whether everyone is doing this, but hopefully they are. Most people have changed their Wi-Fi password. So I think that's more common, is to change the default Wi-Fi password, and that will give you some level of protection. And again, think about your child's digital world. You know, do you give them the password, or do you type it into their devices for them? You know, do you hold that key? And again, if you want to keep that secret, then I'd suggest that you put it on a password manager and lock that on your phone that you can only access through biometrics, just to keep you in control of that password. But if you share it with your child, that's fine too. Whatever you decide, it's your home, it's your Wi-Fi, it's your internet. So I would recommend changing the Wi-Fi default password as in to access your Wi-Fi key. But what's really important, and not many people do it, is changing your basic admin password to your router, and I'll explain that in a bit, because it's super important. And I actually did it last week, and I screenshot my devices just to give you a bit of information around how easy it is to do and how easy and important it is to change. Parental filters. So, you know, a lot of people don't know this. So we're talking about, in this kind of presentation, we're talking about children who are accessing things that perhaps you don't want them to access. It's essentially what we're talking about. And did you know that you can block certain sites from certain devices, or you can block sites automatically through your Wi-Fi router? So you're talking about that parental filter that you can simply do by a couple of clicks on your homepage of your router hub. So really important. And again, I'll illustrate this in a minute. Another thing, I've done this throughout this presentation, is just give you like snippets of cybersecurity advice. One of them is this, is your Wi-Fi placement. You know, honestly, as someone who likes cybersecurity, I'm by no means a cybersecurity expert. And if you ever come across a cybersecurity expert, I should imagine they're not an expert, because most people who are really good at cybersecurity acknowledge that they don't know everything. But when I go and speak to people and I talk to them about cybersecurity, it's alarming how many times I walk down the road and I see a Wi-Fi router in the window and their password is showing outside, and I can see that, and I can bet my bottom dollar not everyone on that street would have changed their Wi-Fi default Wi-Fi router. And why is that important, guys? One of my big passions is I really enjoy ethical hacking, and really enjoy looking at vulnerabilities around networks. And if I could get on someone's network that easily, I could just sit on that network and I can intercept internet packets and take usernames and passwords. So it's really important, just from a cybersecurity point of view, making sure that it's not accessible from your outside sort of domain area. And again, that goes to the Wi-Fi placement. So think about, you know, it being a big giant inflatable beach ball. That's what the router is kind of emitting. So make sure that it's, you know, omnidirectional, so make sure that it's in a place that's covering the majority of your house and you're not leaking that signal outside your four walls, so to speak. So again, that's your basic cybersecurity advice around securing your home Wi-Fi. But now we're going to move on to another slide, and that's getting to know your router. This is super important. Like, as I said, you know, it's like your front door. OK, so why is it important to change the default username and default password? Well, because it opens up this kind of box of cybersecurity stuff that you can do. Now, what I noticed was when we were talking to our individuals and our businesses, we say things as cybersecurity people and go, just change your default password on your router. And I'll get loads of nodding heads going, oh yes, a bit like the Churchill nodding dog. Oh yes, I'll do that. And then they go away, go, I have no idea how to do that. And they just don't end up doing it, even though they've nodded to me and said, yes, we're definitely going to do it, Lou. So I thought for this presentation, I'll take the opportunity just to show you how easy it is, because I don't want to just say to you, go and do it, and then you not really feel confident in doing it. So this is literally screenshotted from my laptop last week. So I was like, right, what would I do if I didn't know anything about network security? I would Google it. Everyone Googles everything. I don't know how we even get out of bed nowadays without Googling it. How do I put my slippers on? Put it in Google, you know? So I put it in. So how to get to my router settings, Sky. Sky is my internet service provider. But if you're not Sky, which I doubt everyone is, so go to whatever it is, Virgin, Net Plus, you know, BT, whatever it is, how to get to my router. And the first thing that'll pop up is exactly that on your screen. Find, change and reset your hub password. So it says check your connection to your Sky broadband. So it says in browser bar, enter this. And this is the IP address, your internal, because it starts with a 192. So it's your internal IP address of your router. OK, so it gave me a full IP address. And then what's interesting, if you look at the sort of step 4 and 5, just shows you if you don't change it, you can just Google it, and the first thing that pops up tells you what your default password is. So the default username is admin, and depending on the age of your router, if you've got an older router, generally your password is, as you can see, Sky. Or if you've got a younger router, like a newer one, your Wi-Fi password is your password. So both of those your child will know. So if they Google it, they can see it's either Sky or Wi-Fi password. So I should imagine they know what the Wi-Fi password is. So if you get that, and the next slide will pop up now, what I did was I put the 192.168 into my browser bar, as you can see now. So it's in my browser bar, so my address bar at the top. Again, this is just a screenshot of my laptop. So I put in 192.168.0.1, which is the internal router address of the internal IP address, sorry, of my router. And then up pops, because I'm connected to my Wi-Fi, up pops my Sky Hub page. And then it tells me some really useful information. So it tells me what my SSID is. In simple terms, that's what your Wi-Fi is called. Okay. So again, we always recommend a bit of cybersecurity advice. We recommend to change that. You can actually disable it. So it's where it says wireless network visible. Mine is yes, which means if you come to my house and you're one of my annoying guests that go, what's your Wi-Fi password? You then click on your Wi-Fi on your phone, it will show up. My Sky B9C6 F7 will show up, and I'll say, oh, that's my Wi-Fi. Click on that. Okay, and then it tells you some other stuff about what type of encryption it is. WPA2. Make sure it's WPA2. Most of them are now. It used to be WEP, WEP, and that was really insecure. Most are, so it's a bit pointless to tell you that. Other things on the MAC, what we call a MAC address, really interesting. So again, my colleague will click the page up and it'll spin up what other things you can see. What's interesting, just putting this IP address into my browser bar and pulling up my Sky Hub on the same page, so immediately, you don't need to click on anything else, it will tell me what devices are connected to my home network. Why is that important? Well, I'll tell you. It's because what, again, I noticed when I was talking to young individuals, sometimes they have devices that parents don't know about. So they have secret devices, as you will. So if you want to know exactly what device is connected to your internet, go on your hub and it will tell you. Go on this page and it'll tell you. So I've blocked a few things out because they're relevant to my work, but there's some other stuff that you can see. So you Google Home Mini. Now, if anyone knows what that is, it's one of those, I've got it in my kitchen. It's the most expensive time I've ever bought because all I ever do is go Google how long left for my dinner. That's the only reason I ever use that, and that's connected to the internet, and it has a MAC address. Like I said, a MAC address has nothing to do with Apple Mac. It's a media access control address, and it's a unique number that distinguishes devices on your network in simple terms. I also have a Sky booster in my house because my signal's pretty average, but that's a really good thing to do. And what's interesting as well, some internet service providers through their hub allow you to do something called MAC filtering, which says that you can put filtering on that only allows certain devices to gain access to that network. Interesting though, if they're really technical, some of the individuals that I work with in the cyber choices, you can do something called spoofing, which is you can spoof, you can change your MAC address, but for basic users they wouldn't know how to do that, so MAC filtering may be an option. Other things you can do, so you can block sites. So again, this is simply on the Sky page. So if you look on the right hand side of your screen where it says useful settings on the initial Sky Hub page, it goes through, you change your admin password, change your wireless router, change your channel, and change parental controls. If you click on that, you can block sites. So again, if you're concerned that your child is accessing stuff that you don't want them to see, you can put keywords in, or you can put domain names in, and you can schedule it. So again, if you don't want your child looking at, I don't know, Facebook, but you know, after they go to bed at, I don't know what time children go to bed, I don't have any children, should we just say 8 o'clock? A lot of parents are now laughing, going, I should be so lucky. If you want to have access to Facebook after 8, then you can do, because you can put a schedule in, so you can block sites. Again, it's simple things to do, just be signing into your wireless router page, which is really interesting. Other things you can do as well, you're talking about other parental controls, you know, you can put different rules on your firewall. So what does that mean? So every hub, every router has an internal firewall on, and you can put things in place to stop accessing certain sites. And you can also put some rules on to say that you don't want someone to access the internet at a certain time, because again, what we've noticed when I've been talking to young individuals, kids are getting up at 2-3 o'clock in the morning to go online to converse with other people around the world. So if you don't want that to happen, you can put a firewall in place, and you can make a certain rule on your firewall to say that you can't access the internet through this time. You know, I don't want to go into logistics of you know, cybersecurity, but to access the internet you have to go through a port depending what type of site you're looking at. So if it's encrypted, you're using HTTPS, which is on port 443, and if it's non-encrypted, you're using HTTP, which is on port 80. You can close those ports and you can schedule it for different times, and therefore you can't they can't access the internet. They simply, it's a bit like a gate at the back. Try and think of it like a gate on the back of your computer, and basically shutting that gate to the internet between these certain times. Again, that's slightly more technical. I probably lost a few people, and they probably started checking their Facebook status now because they've slightly lost. But check those out on your Sky router, because not your Sky router, any router, because they're easy enough to do, and you can always get advice around parental controls by your internet service provider. Now, what's really important is you can just see it on your right hand side. You can change the admin password. Now you can put all of these things in place. You can block sites, you can schedule it. Your firewall is on fire because you've done that many rules and regulations around your home network. You've locked it down. It is secure. But if you don't change your admin password and your admin username, what on earth do you think is going to happen? Yep, we see it all the time. Kids will just, parents go on and they do all of this and they forget or don't change the admin password, and the kid just Googles it. So it's really, really important to get your password strength up. So what's interesting with password strength is we deal with this all the time, and it's one of the biggest things. Like I said, I've got an interest in ethical hacking, so I've used password cracking software. Now, as you can see, there's numbers 1 to 10, and there's some basic passwords that we see people, believe me, we see people use these type of passwords, right? And they're sort of the top 10 sort of passwords being used, so to speak. Don't ask me when that was collated, that list. I don't know. It was something I just got off the old internet, so it must be true. But if you go on a website called howsecureismypassword.com, I think it is, you can test the strength of your password. So if you've got a password that says let me in, how long do you think it will take to crack that using the password cracking software? Well, I can tell you it's instantly. So as soon as I press enter on the cracking password cracking software, it will break that because it's such a weak password. So the NCSC give out advice. So we work around the National Cybersecurity Centre, and their advice is to say, if you're going to get a password, make sure it's 3 random words. So it'll pop up in a minute. I've just got some 3 random words: coffee, train and fish. So if those passwords between 1 and 10 were cracked instantly, just changing 3 random words pushed together makes that password take 1,000 years to be cracked by password software, cracking software. So if you wanted to be extra, cautious, so to speak, if you put a special character, I don't know, a question mark at the end or exclamation mark at the start, it goes from 1,000 years to 50 million years. So I can't, sort of emphasize it enough. You need to change your admin password, you need to do your parental controls, and make sure your password's strong, and make sure it's not the same as the laptop that you give your child access to. Don't know what's going on with the screen now. My colleagues will click it in a minute, I'm sure, and it's going to go on to your cybersecurity there we are, cybersecurity recap. So again, this is just your basic cybersecurity advice. Go on these websites. I can't emphasize it enough. Just do a bit of your homework around parental controls, antivirus. We haven't talked about 2-factor authentication. It's just a simple layer of security on your online accounts. All of you will be using it without realizing it. So when you pay for something on Amazon, you get a text message to say, is this you, kind of thing. That's 2FA, we call it. So have a look at all of those, and hopefully that's given you a bit of confidence to go onto your router settings and start taking control back and start thinking about what you want your child to be accessing. And that's kind of leading us on into understanding a few apps, because you need to have that understanding so you can make that informed decision around what you should and shouldn't be kind of allowing your child to have. And this goes back to that first thing I said, 20 minutes ago, whatever it was, around having that conversation with the child. So to understand what apps they're doing, you have to have a conversation, because you'll just be guessing. So what I've done as well, just to help you guys, is I've going to talk about a couple of apps. I've got a bit of time, probably not. Oh, I've gone over as always. I'll give 1 or 2 then. around just giving you a bit of information so you can then make the most informed decision on whether you feel it appropriate that your child is using the app. You know, I'm not going to tell you what is or what is not appropriate app for a child to be using. It's not my place to do that. But what I'm going to do is talk about two apps that have legitimate uses and are free, easily downloadable, and some are really, you know, one is particularly fun to use. But what I'm trying to illustrate to you is there may be features within that app that you are unaware of, and that may inform your decision whether you think it's appropriate to have your child accessing those applications. It's trying to inform you to have those decisions. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm not at all. I'm just saying you just need to be informed so you can make those decisions, and indeed have a conversation with that young person around why you've made a decision, if indeed you choose for them not to use it, or use a different alternative that you're more comfortable with. So again, like I said, I'm just going to give you a brief explanation of some of the main purposes of the apps and some of the functionality so you can have an insight and maybe give you a bit of motivation to seek out more information. The first one I'll talk about is Discord. Now, Discord is one of the most popular communication platforms we have come across. I've used it. It's really super fun to use, and you can see once you use it why it's so popular within the younger generation, because it's a kind of a unique communication platform. It was predominantly used by gamers, and like currently I did a bit of research before I came on. It's got over 100 million monthly users, so it's really super popular. Now, what's unique about this app, it's not just a communication platform. So a lot of parents who I talk to and think their child's, you know, communicating on Discord, they're like, oh, it's the same as WhatsApp. It's not. It isn't the same as WhatsApp. It's very different, actually. And what I want to do is just give you a bit of information that might think, oh, okay, I want to go and research that and make sure it's appropriate for my child to be using it. So one of the things, which is actually a really cool feature, it's really really good, is it's got the ability to join groups, which are called servers within Discord, and those servers are categorized into topics. For example, Minecraft, I don't know, modding, which is a way of modifying games, or, you know, gaming would be one. And these servers can be public. So what that means is anyone on Discord can access them. So it's not like you need a friend request to access them. Anyone can rock up, and therefore, you know, your child could be exposed to seeing things, because it's often you know, unregulated chat, and you can share videos and games and content. So again, you know, it's something to be mindful. If your child or a young person you know is using Discord, it'd be good to have a conversation with them about what servers they're on, what topics of conversation they're engaged with, and stuff like, do they know the people on the server? Is it a private server? Are you friends with them, and how do you know them? Are you just friends with them through Discord? Are you friends with them in real life? And having those really, really good open conversations to try and get a bit of clarity about you know, what your child is doing. Another thing is to sign up to the account, you only need to display a username, so there's nothing verified, and you can have multiple accounts. I know lots of individuals have multiple accounts, so it's quite easy to be exposed to people who are not who they're claiming to be. So again, that's another concern that you might want to consider. And another thing is it's got quite a lot of privacy, so there's a lot of encryption. So again, it's good because it provides that privacy, which is probably why it's so popular. But again, it's something that you need to consider. There's some super fun posters out there. So the National Online Safety poster is really good. It gives some great tips about keeping children safe, and things that you can put in place is you can stop friend requesting from inside servers. So if your child is on a public server, that you can put a security setting to stop them being friend requested from people they don't know. And there's also you know, flagging for people who are under 18. So that's a really cool app. But again, if your child is using it, I definitely have a good conversation with them to make sure that they're engaging with people that you're okay with, and they're engaging with content that you're okay with. And I don't know, have I got 5 more minutes, or am I kicked off? I don't know if anyone's going to shout up. I can talk for England. Hello.
I think it should be fine, Lou.
Okay, I'll just cover one more, and then I'll hand over to my wonderful colleague Craig, who can carry on. The one thing I really wanted to talk about as well is Tor. It's not really an application. So it's a bit of a software and a network really. So Tor it's an acronym. It stands for the onion routing, and it originally started in the mid-90s. And the intention of Tor was to facilitate the American intelligence community transporting information over the internet. That's been developed slightly. It's now run by volunteers, but it's still, their main purpose is to provide a way to use the internet with as much privacy as possible. So I don't want to get the technical stuff around Tor, but Tor uses multiple servers and it encrypts each time, and it uses random servers that are basically volunteered computers, and it just increases, being anonymous online and an element of privacy. And again, a lot of people mistake privacy for naughtiness. It's not. It can be completely normal to seek out privacy online. So, one of the things that, a lot of people have been influenced by are scandals like the Cambridge Analytica scandal, where people were selling people's data, and also the collection of cookies. I'm sure we've all been slightly annoyed that you've Googled something to buy, I don't know, your partner's birthday present, and then you put on YouTube and an advert pops up. It's widely accepted that Tor is being used by, ordinary individuals and family members as a way of preventing website tracking, such as cookies, basically. So, there are completely legitimate reasons for having Tor. However, Tor does give you access to the dark web, and this is where people get a bit confused. Tor is not the dark web. The dark web is a collection of non-indexed websites that can only be accessed through routing software such as Tor, but Tor in itself is not the dark web, and I hope that provides a little bit of clarity. But Tor has been used to gain access to online black markets because it hides the location of the market hosts and so on and so forth. Like I said, it's not illegal to go on the dark web. I'm not telling you not to do it. All I'm saying is I would encourage a good conversation with people around whether you feel it's appropriate or not. It is relatively easy to come across some things that you perhaps would not like a child to be exposed to on the dark web, but there's other stuff on the dark web that is perfectly legitimate. So it's making you have an informed decision. But what I want you to do is have a conversation and understand why your child may be using Tor, and if they're going on the dark web, why, and have a really clear conversation with your child around that. Because if they're seeking privacy, which I've explained is perfectly normal, then you might be thinking about a VPN, and a VPN is a virtual private network, and it's using similar technology to Tor, so it's a proxy-based technology, and its mere design is to increase the privacy of the user. So, I've explained how Tor works. It sort of uses random Tor nodes and it encrypts, where VPN encrypts your connection and routes it through intermediary server in another location. And it could be a location of the user's choosing, and that server is often, is owned by the VPN company, so to speak. So it still encrypts your traffic, so it gives you an element of privacy, but it doesn't necessarily give you the anonymity that Tor gives you. So you need to have a good conversation with the child about, well, if you're using Tor for privacy, maybe a VPN is more appropriate that you can get with the security bundle that we've talked about, because it gives you that same level of privacy, or similar level of privacy, should I say, but then it doesn't necessarily give you access to the dark web, because perhaps that's something that you feel that is not appropriate for your child. So that's kind of it. Again, I'm not saying, someone using Tor does not mean they're going on the dark web and doing anything illegal. I'm not saying that in the slightest. I'm just saying I want you to understand what kids are doing online, so you as a parent, as a professional, as an adult, can make an informed decision around whether you feel it's appropriate or not, and have a really open and honest conversation with your young child to understand their digital world. So that's it. I hope you've enjoyed my wee chat around tech. I'll be here for questions a bit later on, I should imagine. We've got a website that gives cybersecurity advice not only to organisations but also individuals, and also talks about the cyber choices, which I've already mentioned, around highly talented and gifted, technically gifted young individuals. So go and have a look at our website, which is www.eastmidlandscybersecure.co.uk. More information, and there's a parent checklist on there that will give you a detailed checklist that you can go through on all the things I've talked about this evening. So thanks for your time. Over to anyone else.
Thanks for that, Lou. That was a fascinating input, and I'm sure I learned a lot from that, and hopefully others did as well. So, if you've got 5 minutes, we've had quite a few questions published in the Q&A section. A lot of people are asking around access to the material and the video from this event. Hopefully, we're going to do that. We're just going to work out the technical aspects of it, and then we can hopefully share that with people who attended the event afterwards and anyone else who couldn't make it. So we'll get back to you on that one. We've had some other specific questions. One here is, can you set up specific rules for specific devices, i.e. firewalls, timings, etc., as I have a 19-year-old and a 13-year-old?
Yep, you can, absolutely. And if you can't do it, because if you start going on to your firewall rules and you misconfigure something, it will just knock your whole internet out. So if you've got complex rules, I would suggest you go on your internet service provider, go and speak to their customer service page, and they'll be help you to walk you through it. And some internet service providers often enable that at their level, so you don't even have to touch your router. They can do it at their level, because if you're the account holder, you can give them authority to do that. So absolutely. And like I said, just to go back on your other point about the video, we've got some really cool videos on our website around securing your home Wi-Fi. So a couple of my colleagues have actually gone through and told you how to do it, so check out that website as well. Any other questions?
There's plenty. I don't think we'll get through all of them, but there's another good one here. Is it possible to block certain keywords or content specifically on YouTube?
Oh, good one. The answer is I don't know. I doubt it, because it would be a /. So, but what you could do, I should imagine, and I haven't tried it, but definitely Google it, because if you go on YouTube, every YouTuber has an ID, and it's a / in their ID number. So if there's a channel that you don't particularly like, i.e. they're following someone, then I should imagine, because it's a domain address, you should be able to filter that out. But because it's a search engine within a website, essentially, I don't think you will, but you'd have to check with the internet service provider, because they'll give you more advice, and it does differ. Great. Good question though.
Thanks, Lou. I think we've got time for just a couple more. So the next one is, Wi-Fi lockdown and restrictions are easy enough to achieve. However, how do you limit access when children have unlimited data packages?
Oh, that is a crack of a question, and unfortunately it will get down to parental control. Then again, you can contact your mobile, because you're talking about mobile devices now, aren't you? Not talking about home Wi-Fi. Again, who pays the bill is what I'll say. Is, you pay the bill, don't you? So I would suggest don't give them unlimited data on their phone, because you probably pay the bill. Also, you can lock down a phone so they can only be used as a phone. You won't be very popular if you did that, but you can actually do that, especially on iPhones. They do have quite good settings where you could just you can ensure that they can't download certain apps. But again, you'd have to do your research. Depends what phone it is, depends what internet service provider is. But if you're worried about them tethering data, then I'm afraid you're going to have to come, perhaps you shouldn't be giving them unlimited data. I would suggest maybe. Again, sorry, probably not the best answer, but that's a little bit of honesty.
Thanks, Lou. And I think we're going to have to cut it off at some point. So one last question then. So, and this is around parental controls. Yeah. What do you suggest parents do if children enter an app using a different date of birth, making them appear older than their actual age?
If you think that's happened, then you could contact the application site, because they'll all have a unique ID, and you could then inform them of it. So then that would then you could get that account suspended. But again, it'll go back to my conversation. Why are they doing that? You need to have that good conversation with the child, because why are they doing that? Why are they so desperate to get on that application? They've lied about their date of birth. There's probably, more conversation you should be having around this dishonesty, but again, kids are kids, and people lie about their date of birth to get on applications and still not doing anything wrong. You need to inform yourself whether you're okay with them using that app as well. So it's a bit of a combined effort. So again, you can report it, you can get their account suspended because they're not old enough. But again, a good conversation with the child, and also think about what app they're going on, because if it's an app that you're okay with, then perhaps you need to have a conversation about lying, but then you can go forward with going on that application.
Fantastic. Thank you very much again for that, Lou, and cheers for giving all the guests here your expert input into that. I think just in the because we're going to have to move on, we've got another guest speaker waiting in the wings. We're going to cut the questions short there. Hopefully we can answer some of them in the live Q&A session as we go along. But without further ado, I shall hand over to Craig Lewis and the next input. Thank you.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm Craig, I'm from Warning Zone. Warning Zone's a charity in Leicester that delivers lessons to young people from 10 years upwards about understanding and managing risks in their lives. And a large part of that involves technology and the internet. Now, you've already heard from Lou about ways to secure your home network and some of the apps that might be used to access it. So now we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the behaviours that might happen on those apps. Conversations like this are always going to feel like dipping a toe in the ocean because there's so much we could talk about. So we're going to keep this focused on one theme. We're going to talk about situations where a young person posts something online that makes you uncomfortable, but you're not sure if you should be concerned. It might not be clear if they genuinely believe what they're saying or if it's a wind-up, often known as trolling. You may also be uneasy about the intentions of the people exposing them to these ideas. We've seen a rise in these kind of posts throughout lockdown, so we'll start by talking about why that might be, and then get into trolling and the possible reasons behind it. Now, the one thing I want to make clear before we move on is that you won't need to understand anything about technology to take something away from this. Technology is a tool, nothing more. This conversation's about people, and you all have experience of being people. You can apply your life experience to most concerns you have about the use of technology. If you can get a young person to explain a situation to you that's worrying them, and you cross out all the technology bits, you'll probably understand the real problem from what's left. Technology comes and goes, but life experience will always be relevant and useful because people don't really change all that much. Now, as we talk, I'd like you to keep a word in mind, and that word is intent. Throughout lockdown, we've all spent more time using the internet and new communications technology than ever before, which has changed us as a society. We might have felt far more isolated without it, and how many of us would have taken part in an online event like this just a year ago? Now, it might have been a bit of a trial by fire for people who didn't use this technology a great deal to start with. There may have been lots of unfamiliar things that left them feeling a little unsettled. It might have felt like a strange country where all of the customs and expectations are new. In those circumstances, it's okay to feel uncertain about what is and isn't normal. This is a really important thing to remember when we look at things young people get involved with online. It's not always easy to understand why they do the things they do in the places that are familiar to them, but not to you. That's why it's important not to jump to conclusions about what something you saw might mean. That could put up barriers between you that will make it harder to reach an understanding. Over the last year or so, we've consumed a lot of news and social media content because we're all hungry for information about our current social challenges and major historical events that have happened around the world throughout this time. You've probably noticed that online opinions have become polarised about a lot of important issues, often aggressively so. This might be a stir-crazy reaction to lockdown and feeling helpless in the face of a global crisis, but it's affected us all, and that includes young people. We all react in different ways to this for different reasons. For some of us, it's to seek a broad understanding of the issues. For others, it's to fight harder to defend their beliefs. And for a few, it's to make light of the situation and wind the other parties up for entertainment. So we'll start with a word: trolling. Trolling's the act of posting obnoxious and often offensive things online to stir up a reaction. Most of the time, the trolls won't believe the things they're posting, but they don't have to. They just pick things that will provide the biggest upset or that they find funny. I'll give you an example. This flag is from a country that doesn't actually exist. If you're already spotting some uncomfortable similarities with a particular historical flag, that's entirely intentional. The logo in the corner has been changed from an iron cross to the logo of the website where this flag was conceived, but there is no ambiguity there, as I can demonstrate by briefly swapping the green for red. If you watch footage of protests on the news, you'll often see this flag being waved by people who are there to oppose the protesters, especially if they're arguing for equality or social justice. There's a whole mythology around this flag and the non-existent country it represents, which I'm not going to give publicity to here. Suffice to say, it's used by trolls, white nationalists and the far right to get a rise out of people and to make them angry at what it might imply. And the whole point is that you won't be able to tell which group is which. So let's get rid of it. Another important and popular one at the minute is the Q Anon Conspiracy, which is, I'm going to take a deep breath here, The belief that a high-ranking US government official is leaking secrets that prove that the world is run by a group of Satan-worshipping paedophiles, including Oprah Winfrey, Bill Gates, Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, and that they're consuming chemicals extracted from the blood of children to extend their lives. In this world, Donald Trump is a secret agent who spent his life working to bring this secret cabal down. And breathe. Okay, QAnon's beliefs run into pages and pages, incorporating just about every other conspiracy theory you can think of. At its heart, it's far-right, racist and anti-Semitic, and so utterly ludicrous that trolls love to post about it because they like the idea of other people taking it seriously. The thing is, lots of the crowd who stormed the Capitol building in January were wearing QAnon t-shirts, as you can see. And one man fired his gun in a Washington pizza restaurant because he believed that Hillary Clinton was running a child abuse ring from the basement. It's believed that a significant amount of Republican voters accept at least some aspects of the conspiracy as true. Words have consequences, even ones repeated as a joke. Now, if you saw someone posting about this kind of thing, you'd worry about whether the troll actually believes it. Do they genuinely subscribe to some of these awful ideas? Are they dangerous because of that? Without knowing a little bit more about why that person trolls and where they got their material from, it's hard to be sure. A lot of people get drawn into trolling because of other factors. One similarity you'll often see is the belief that they don't really fit in with the world they see around them, and they react against that by finding other people who feel the same and fighting back. They're often troubled by difficulties with things like self-esteem, education, relationships, social awkwardness, family expectations, employment or money, but the overwhelming emotion is feeling powerless. Trolling gives back some of that sense of power by making them feel that they understand something the rest of the world doesn't for a change. Coincidentally, that's also something you'll see with conspiracy theory believers and extremists who concentrate on blaming others for the things they see going wrong in their own lives. The similarities are why it's completely justified to feel concerned when you see this kind of thing. In many cases, members of these groups won't even stick with the same extreme beliefs for long. They'll change them when something new comes along or build a kind of pick and mix of disconnected ideas they just like the sound of. We're seeing this a lot more now, and I think it shows that the source of this issue often isn't a particular belief, but an insecure person looking for somewhere to fit in. That insecurity can easily lead to vulnerability, and people who are manipulative are good at picking up on that. Other narratives trolls repeat aren't necessarily designed to attack others, although that is sometimes considered a bonus. They're often to make the person repeating them feel better about themselves. They might not realise that some of those narratives are actually designed to cause real harm, or they might just not care. They also may not understand that others around them repeating the same narratives are serious, and that to a casual observer there is no difference between them. Creating that sort of uncertainty is the very art of trolling and the humour behind it, but trolls don't expect it to turn around and bite them. Now, this has happened recently when young people have come to the attention of the police for posting quite extreme content and points of view that set alarm bells ringing, but were later shocked that anyone took them seriously. For example, it can't have escaped anyone's attention that most of the people who were involved in the US insurrection, in attacks on Black Lives Matter activists, and in various shootings around the world are young white males. When other young white males appear to champion these individuals as kindred spirits, are they trolling or do they mean it? It kind of has to be taken seriously and looked into just in case they're planning to be the next and ride off that sense of notoriety a little bit. You'll often find that the sense of community and belonging that goes along with the sort of groups that enjoy trolling and hold these people up as figureheads is powerful, and it helps the members to feel supported and less like outsiders, as we discussed earlier. The risk is that maintaining that support usually involves falling in with community beliefs and staying on side, and that can lead people to adopt some worrying ideas. That's why the word intent that we mentioned at the start is important, and that's something you can only discover by starting conversations rather than doing basic research and then making assumptions or accusations. So, let's go through a quick historical example to show you how a slow drift from something fairly benign online can move into something far more serious easily if the place you hang out online starts to get argumentative. We are going to mention a few websites and apps here, but don't worry, remembering them isn't important. It's just to show you how behaviours can change as different apps and websites come and go. Reddit is a hugely popular website with almost 50 million active users a month. It contains a massive series of chat forums called subreddits, arranged by areas of interest where users can post their own thoughts and others can comment on them. Posts and comments can be voted up or down by users with the intention of allowing the most popular contributions to rise to the top. Reddit has a principle of opposing censorship, which means that alongside the millions of people who use it for positive discussions and learning new things, there are plenty of others who post some of the most hateful content anywhere on the internet. This has included misogynistic hate campaigns, neo-Nazi propaganda, sexualized images of children, covert voyeuristic photos of women taken without their consent, and nude photos hacked from the phones of celebrities. Even if you're on Reddit for positive reasons, it's impossible to avoid becoming aware of high-profile issues like these as they float to the top because of notoriety. If you join in with your own comment, especially a critical one, it's hard not to get pulled back in to fight your corner as other users come back at you. That tends to create conflict and also exposes you to a lot of worrying viewpoints you might otherwise have missed. Reddit grudgingly started to shut down some of the most controversial subreddits whenever public opinion turned against them. Many of these were populated by a combination of right-leaning libertarians who were outraged at the closure and far-right extremists who were angry at losing their soapbox. It also meant that trolls who hung around on those subreddits for fun and notoriety were evicted along with them. That left them all looking for new homes, and a number of apps and websites stepped up to take advantage of this. We had sites like Vote, which was designed to be very similar to Reddit, and immediately played host to the far-right and conspiracy theorists. The conversations that got them banned from Reddit were just carried across and reignited. Gab is designed to look almost identical to Twitter and picked up users who'd been thrown off a range of other sites or whose favourite sites had been banned. Far-right and anti-Semitic conversations are the norm there and are never removed by the platform, which has led to it being banned from app stores. The owners of Gab also created a browser called Dissenter, which allows users to leave comments overlaid on websites that only other Dissenter users can read. This is regularly used on websites that have closed down their comment sections because of harassment and threats. Some neo-Nazis found a new home with Minds, which was an app that seemed to allow everything but criticism of its own users. This site gave people tokens for making popular posts and let them spend those tokens to promote their future posts, which created a race to the bottom where the nastiest commentators were rewarded for being extreme and then used those rewards to become even more visible. The remaining neo-Nazis joined the anti-vaxxers and conspiracy theorists and moved to MeWe, which was styled after Facebook and designed to provide a familiar home to people who'd been thrown off the real thing. It wasn't a particularly big deal for a long time, but just after the recent US presidential election, downloads hit an all-time high. Then we have Parler, which was an absolute disaster when it was launched, but later became famous as self-proclaimed free speech advocates who supported Donald Trump began to use it to promote the Q Anon conspiracy theory and plan the assault on Capitol Hill in January. It still hosts many famous users who've been banned from other platforms for hate speech, and it thrives on racism, misogyny, and Islamophobia. We should probably also mention BitChute here, which is a video hosting site that's full of content created by neo-Nazis, anti-Semites and anti-vaxxers, and terror groups, including ISIS and Atomwaffen. This site allows users to pay video creators for their content, effectively enabling the direct funding of terrorism. Now, I'm not saying at all that all of the users of these places are as extreme as each other, but most will have signed up because they like the idea of not being held accountable for their words. The point here is that every time a particular place online starts to get out of control and comes in for sanctions, many of the users will take this personally and look for somewhere else to go and rant about the injustice of it all. The new place will be largely populated by the most extreme factions from the previous one, and it's unlikely that anything positive will be discussed there. You'd therefore assume that anyone who spends time in those places subscribes to their worst beliefs, but they may simply have ended up there by following the herd after their old trolling grounds were closed down. Regardless of how they got there, they are now open to a lot of dangerous influences. So let's tie everything together that we've talked about and see how things can spiral. If a young person having a hard time finds a place where other people seem to understand them and share their interests, that can feel like a relief. We all go through periods of trying to work out who we are, and that often involves identifying with groups or subcultures. In challenging times, people tend to have angrier conversations and opinions become polarised. People will often become more tribal and split into groups based on their shared values, even if they don't entirely agree with everything their new peers believe. After a while, they'll internalise those values and repeat them because that's what the new group stands by. Over time, they'll be exposed to the other opinions present in the new group, many of whom will still be angry about the last big falling out and still looking to hang the blame on someone. They may begin repeating these new, more extreme ideas just to stay with the group that made them feel wanted. After a while, there's nothing strange about those ideas, and they champion them as a badge of honour that comes with membership, fighting back hard against anyone who calls them out for something they now feel is perfectly okay to say. Fighting like this creates favour among the group, especially if it's done openly in public, and the rewarding feeling that comes from being respected convinces them that they're doing the right thing, so they do it even more. Over time, they may only not fight for the right of their group to hold those views, but come to believe fervently in them. That's the spiral from wanting to be liked to internalising dangerous beliefs because the people you've come to depend on also hold them. This isn't uncommon to see in people who've become radicalised. So, to summarise, hopefully we can see why starting conversations about intent gently and without accusation is important. Someone's outward behaviour, including the things they post, may be the end product of a long time struggling with the world and finding comfort in dark places. If they arrived at those places because they felt that society didn't care about them, they're not likely to react well to society pointing out they're in a bad way. It also means society is the last place they'll go to look for help if it all feels like it's becoming too much. If the person seems defensive, forcing the conversation to be about them might push them further away. Talking about how you feel about the subject instead might give them an opportunity to make the conversation about you, and you'll learn a lot about their position as they talk. It's best not to assume that using a website or an app means that the person is involved in the worst aspects of it. These places are huge, and the people may not go anywhere near the more dangerous fringes. It's perfectly possible to enjoy Reddit for your own reasons without subscribing to the far right, just as it's possible to use Discord for gaming chats, even though historically a very small number of people have used it to share child pornography. Remember, intent is the important thing here, always. The places they visit online and the apps they use are far less important than the ideas they're happy to put out to the world, and the only way to learn about those is to start conversations, like Lou said. Maybe ask for a concept you don't understand to be explained to you, which is very different to asking a person to explain themselves and their behaviour. By talking about the ideas, you're removing the pressure from that person, and you'll probably get a good sense of how they feel about the subject. You might find that after having that conversation, you're left even more concerned. It could be that the person's taken on ideas that you're worried might eventually lead to them or someone else getting hurt. You might discover that someone's grooming them into taking those ideas on right now, and you want it to stop. That is not a nice thing to think about, but we have to accept it as a possibility. If that happens, there are places you can go for information and support. I've put some of those on the screen now, and I'll leave them there as we wrap up this section. Remember that if you've seen or heard something really serious and that you feel needs urgent attention, please don't be afraid to call 999 at any time and talk through it. There'll always be someone there to help. So we've covered a huge amount there in a relatively short time. We've talked about how the last year's changed the amount we use technology, about trolling and why people do it, about tribalism on websites and apps, and about the way people can be drawn into extreme behaviour just to stay in with a social group. We've also shown that many of these behaviours are nothing more than being demonstrative for the sake of a peer group, so it's safest not to assume the worst straight away. I hope this has given you an insight into some aspects of online culture and reassured you that there's help out there if you're feeling worried about someone's behaviour and you'd like some advice. Most solutions start with a conversation, but you don't have to plan that conversation on your own. So with that, I'll hand you back to the team.
Craig, thank you so much for that. That was really useful and always delivered with real passion as well. We've had some questions come in for you. If I could just relay them, if you've got time to answer.
Sure.
The first one is the use of ironic humour, particularly around far-right memes. I just wondered if you had any observations around that.
It's a really challenging one because, as you've seen from a couple of the resources I shared, like the flag, I think we're excellent, certainly in the United Kingdom, at producing humour that always flies very close to the wind without crossing over. And online, that's magnified, and I think there's an art form to that. I think in a lot of cases, the reaction to the humour is what people are looking for. It's the laughs and the cheers, not necessarily any belief in what's going on. So, as I said, with intent, I think the matter is, firstly, to look at how that person feels about the humour they're sharing. Are they doing it for a particular reason? Do they actually subscribe to it? But the second important thing is to realise that there are two sides to humour. There's the person delivering it and the person on the receiving end. And I think a lot of the more ironic humour that tends to be used in certain places online is purely designed to punch downwards at some of the most vulnerable people. So I think the important thing to do is talk about that humour. Just say, well, why is that funny? You know, who's that aimed at? Is there a point I'm missing behind this? Just, you know, act like you don't really get it. See if you can extract anything from that. Most of the time, I find this humour passes by and it's forgotten the week after and the next thing comes along. So I don't think there's any strict belief in a lot of it. But it's always worth having that conversation about saying, can you picture the people viewing this? What do you think they'll say? How will they react to it? Who's going to be harmed by it? Because the question of harm might not even come into their minds at the time they posted it.
Thank you, Craig. Really helpful. You'd be pleased to know that we've answered most of those questions as they've come up in the chat section. So I'd just like to say again, thanks, Craig, for that input. That last slide you've got up there, got some really interesting websites, really useful ones. So the I Report It app, actually produced by the Mayor's Office in London, or it's obviously available countrywide, and is a really simple way, if you stumble across a website that you are unhappy with, for you to go to and anonymously report it, so the appropriate action can be taken. And very often it's not about taking it down, it's about ensuring that when people do go to it, they're signposted to more positive messaging. Act Early is a counter-terrorist policing website, and its name very much stresses what it really is about. It's about that early intervention before we get to the stage that a criminal investigation is necessary, and that essentially is what Prevent is about. It's about diverting people before they cross over the criminal threshold and getting them the support they need. And as much as our partners are really important, you know, whether that is local councils, teaching, etc., the referrals we get from the community are of a really high quality, and that is because of a desire to support the young person, the vulnerable person that they're worried about. So if there is anything you take away from here, is that the importance of coming forward early when you are concerned about someone, to ensure that we can get that that prompt support to them, and that importance of having confidence in us. And for those of you who may have some prominence in your local communities, experience shows us that you are the people that the public are most likely to approach first, just broker that relationship and that contact with the police. So, you know, please be aware that people may seek you out for that support in reaching out for support themselves. Okay, so I would just like to finish off by thanking our speakers. I think the key messages I took for that, you know, from Lou, very much around the importance of having honest, open conversations with your children and not jumping to conclusions. You know, I think that key element of that router being the front door, and, you know, being as security conscious around your router as you are over your, you know, your domestic security. And I think you know, what a great phrase about, you know, you're the one who pays the bill. You know, that importance of our role as parents to, you know, to take control and give guidance and leadership to our children. So, you know, thank you for those, and I'll definitely be absorbing that myself. So one final comment from me, we're going to put up some links for you to go to. We'll send it out through the Eventbrite link, and I would encourage you that there currently is an independent review of Prevent going on. So Paul Gibson, at the head of this, talked around the controversy around Prevent, and community's uncertainty and sometimes lack of confidence in it. The government have a review going on that is chaired by William Shawcross, and we will send you the link to that if you have any questions or would like to get involved in that, because the more people, whether that is members of the public or partners who get involved in that, the more thorough that review will be and the more meaningful it will be in its report to Parliament. So unless there are any other questions, I'm going to wrap up. And
there's a few questions come in, Bill, if you're interested in answering them, or Craig answering them.
Right, okay, so can you just sing them out, Mark? And
yeah, so we've got one which says, if a child is on the receiving end of trolling, is there anywhere they can go?
Right, that's a really difficult one, because it's a moving target, and I think a lot of people, well, one of the most famous sites for originating a lot of trolling and memes on the internet puts a whole focus on being anonymous, for the whole idea of not facing accountability for what they do. So I suppose it depends on how it's happening. If it's through some of the more common things we see, like creating fake accounts, duplicate accounts that purport to be that person, it is possible to get those accounts shut down. But unfortunately, it's like pushing down a bubble in a wallpaper. Because there's no barrier to creating new ones, it generally tends to keep happening. And this is one of the hardest things about working in this field. As society, we have not dealt with bullying ever in the entire history of the human race. And I think it's difficult to feel that we can deal with it now if people feel they want to go down that route. My focus is always on the person who's the victim. What can I do for them? How can I talk to them? How can I make them feel okay? Not necessarily make them resilient, because it's not their job to deal with all the abuse that's coming in. The ideal thing is they shouldn't have to deal with it at all. But if we can put that person in a place where they can decide what's important to them and cut some of those negative influences out of their life, they will just naturally be happier. If they do know the person who's trolling, one of the key things about trolling is that it won't land on your doorstep. The idea that you can do it at a distance and there won't be any consequences. You will often be surprised that a conversation from a senior member of staff at school to someone who's known to be doing that comes as a big shock, because it brings home the idea that there are real world consequences. It's not ideal, but I think what I would say is block the accounts wherever you can. Don't be afraid to keep blocking them wherever you can. It only takes a couple of seconds and it takes a lot of pressure off you. But mainly concentrate on the person who's being trolled and see what you can do to support them, and perhaps put them in a place where either they feel they can step back from some of those trolling influences, or they can limit their friends group to people who they really care about and who care about them, so it becomes less of an issue. I'm sorry that feels like a cop-out answer, but unfortunately it's one of the big questions of humanity. How do we stop people being terrible to each other? And I don't think we've cracked that one yet.
I think you've given quite a few pointers there on how to prevent it in the first place and how to deal with it. But the one thing I will say is that it actually is an offence under the Malicious Communications Act as well. So if the trolling does become persistent, and then there are things we can do within the police as well to try and combat that.
Craig, if I may, there's just another question for you. Somebody's put in the chat, what does Craig think is the solution to these problems? Policing apps, question education, censorship, or something else?
That is a huge question with a whole range of answers, isn't it? Okay, I think the primary thing is that the problem we have here is that some people like to make other people feel terrible. So we've got to keep that in mind straight away. We've got a perpetrator and we've got a victim here. Some apps you might try to police by getting them shut down if they're being particularly hateful, and that has happened at times. But as we've seen, all that happens is the users decamp and they find another app and they come at it even worse because they're angry at getting kicked off the first one. So it's very, very difficult to police those. You generally find that people like this don't get bored. And as long as there's somewhere else for them to go and congregate, they will keep finding it. Censorship, I think, is a really difficult one, and that's a conversation that's probably beyond the scope of this discussion, because again, that's one of those huge debates in society. What's the point where you decide to draw a line? Should there be a line? Who decides what that line is? I think this is down for individuals. I mean, I self-censor. So if I find myself being about to type something I really think that I'm doing for the sake of anger, I'll stop doing it. I will choose to step back from sites that I feel are making me angry or exposing me to things I don't like. I kind of take my online presence into my own hands and choose not to expose myself to the things that make me miserable. I'm a lot better since I did that. Hiding the YouTube comment section is one of my top recommendations for cutting toxicity out of your online life. But I think the key point in there is that the person who asked the question said in the middle, education. And that's the key one. What we're fundamentally talking here is about people's behaviours. And I think a lot of people do a lot of things because they've never really thought about the consequences of those things. And when you sit down in front of someone who's experienced it or who's suffered at the hands of it, it's difficult not to feel like that feeling in your stomach that you'd missed something and you've been a part of something bad. We go out to schools and we deliver roadshows to entire year groups at once where we talk about situations that have happened online that have been designed to make huge groups of vulnerable people feel absolutely miserable. And there's a palpable silence in the hall afterwards as you see the gears turning when people think, I saw this, but I didn't realise it was such an issue because I've never been on the receiving end. So I think there's a balance to strike. I think education will always be my number one. Keep these conversations going, see how people feel, try and connect people's perspectives up so they feel less like going down that route. And for certain apps where it seems there is an absolutely huge problem and a very real need to control them, I'm not opposed to apps being taken down until they need to be dealt with. And I would hope that the app would come back in a form that was more acceptable to most people. But again, censorship is a moving target and it's not one we can really deal with here.
Thank you, Craig. Mark, have we got any more questions?
No, I'm thinking that's about it. There is one that says, what can schools do about children being allowed to access content in games that are not age appropriate? However, that's a little bit of a peculiar one because it's I would suggest that that's a parental problem rather than a school problem. They can obviously put on talks for the children to discuss those issues, but as far as controlling access to those games, that's going to be a parental issue.
Yeah, and a very frequent one, isn't it? I think games are often seen more benignly than films, aren't they, in terms of exposing children to it, which is misleading. But I know that's a frequent issue that gets raised.
Yeah, I think both Lou and Craig certainly Lou did mention about games, the age rating on games, and the chat on the actual game themselves, and setting up parental controls on those. So I think that's where we'd be aiming that.
Okay, right. Well, thank you very much, folks. We're going to wind up the event. Thank you for all your questions, and thank you, of course, for dialing in, and also thanks to the team for putting this all together. Been a really useful event, and we'll keep you informed of our next plans for another engagement event. Thank you very much. Good night.